Reflecting on the recent news, Ban Zwang came to the conclusion that while she could take on a group of 10 people, facing 100 would be beyond her capability. Based on this realization, she decided to order her group to retreat towards the hills. Although one of their adversaries suggested pursuing them, the cavalry leader intervened, explaining that the terrain ahead was unsuitable for their movement, and attempting to traverse it would significantly slow them down. In response, one of the men questioned their next course of action. Given the substantial loss of their comrades, he proposed that they shouldn't let the assailants escape so easily. Another individual chimed in with the information that their monarch had specifically ordered them to chase after the attackers, and reinforcements were en route. Perplexed, the cavalry leader inquired about the nature of these reinforcements. The individual admitted uncertainty but remained confident that these reinforcements were more than capable of dealing with the assailants. Moving on to another concern, the cavalry leader asked if they had managed to identify the attackers. The individual disclosed that the sword cultivator was known as Yi Xian, while the remaining group members were only recognized as hailing from the Middle Kingdom divine state. Filled with anger, the leader issued a warning to Yi Xian, cautioning him not to fall into his hands and threatening to inflict severe harm if he did. The following morning, beside a river, Yi Xian and his comrades took a moment to rest. Among them was a mercenary who had lost a leg and made a plea to be left behind, suggesting that he would end his own life to prevent becoming a burden. However, the leader's response was one of anger, telling the mercenary to remain silent. Yi Xian produced a pill and instructed the injured individual to consume it. Despite the mercenary's belief that it wouldn't regrow his leg, Yi Xian insisted and forced the pill into his mouth, emphasizing that it would at least save his life. Yi Xian gathered the group's attention and posed a question about their fear of the situation. The leader of the group responded, stating that fear had long abandoned them, and there was no need for Yi Xian to provoke them. She suggested that if Yi Xian had something to say, he should simply state it. Yi Xian outlined the two choices they currently faced. One option was to attempt to traverse the daunting endless swamp lying ahead, which he believed was unlikely to succeed. The alternative was to confront and defeat their enemies, breaking through the encirclement. According to him, this was their best chance. Ban Zwang, however, shook her head in disagreement. She expressed the view that wiping out all the enemies was an impossible feat, emphasizing that these foes were like soldiers of the dead who would not yield an inch. Furthermore, she highlighted the severity of their injuries, noting that trying to force their way through would only result in further casualties. In a moment of peril, an elderly figure with a cane startled the group by addressing Yi Xian. Yi Xian quickly signaled the alarmed mercenaries to halt, recognizing that the elder seemed affiliated with the drunken immortal house. The elder confirmed Yi Xian's suspicion, mentioning that he had been dispatched by the fifth-floor master to provide assistance. Upon hearing this, Yi Xian reassured his group, asserting that he was acquainted with the members of the drunken immortal house. Turning his attention to the elder, Yi Xian inquired urgently about the form of aid the elder could provide. The elder explained that the drunken immortal house members would obstruct the pursuing soldiers, allowing Yi Xian and his group to reach Gainan City safely, where they would be met by someone. Turning to Ban Zwang, Yi Xian sought her opinion on this unexpected lifeline. Ban Zwang recognized that Gainan City was around 300 miles distant from their current location, suggesting that they could potentially outpace their pursuers if they moved swiftly. Agreeing with the plan, Ban Zwang summoned the pack of wolves by whistling, signaling their next action. Taking their places on their mounts, Yi Xian and the group commenced their departure. However, their progress was swiftly interrupted as the leader warned them to remain vigilant against the incoming arrows. Responding to this concern, the elder encouraged them to continue forward, reassuring Ban Zwang that the drunken immortal house would handle the incoming arrows. In a remarkable display, the members of the drunken immortal house swiftly advanced, intercepting each arrow with impressive precision through their formation. Observing this feat, Yi Xian praised the strength of their formation. The elder acknowledged the praise but humbly stated that this was just a small demonstration of the capabilities of the drunken immortal house's formations. However, at that very moment, Yi Xian suddenly halted, causing the elder to inquire about the reason for this abrupt stop. Somewhat uncertain, Yi Xian responded that there was an obstruction in their path. The individual wielding a spear addressed the leader, asserting his ownership of the road and demanding their money if they wished to pass. Unperturbed, Ban Zwang pointed out that he was merely a blade master of the Divine Harmony realm, implying that they had no reason to be intimidated. Following this, Ban Zwang drew her whip and directed it towards the enemy. However, the foes skillfully evaded her attack, leaping forward and poised to counter, curious about the leader's abilities. With quick reflexes, Ban Zwang intercepted his attack and decisively overpowered him in their clash. Taken aback by her strength, the individual questioned if she was part of the martial arts list. Ban Zwang responded with a sudden question about what the list was, before promptly stating that she recognized only the list of demons. Swiftly, she leaped and directed her whip toward him. Despite his attempt to block her attack with his spear, Ban Zwang showcased her superior strength by sending him crashing to the ground. She warned the remaining enemies that they too would suffer similar consequences if they continued to obstruct them. Witnessing this display, Yi Xian asked about the list of demons, admitting he was unfamiliar with it. Lin Han stepped in to provide information, revealing that his elder sister was listed among the demons. The elder chimed in, explaining that Qingzhou had its martial arts list, while the Middle Kingdom kept a list of demons. Those on the list of demons were regarded as the most formidable and malevolent individuals in the Qingtsang realm. Hearing this revelation, Yi Xian expressed his surprise, noting that he hadn't anticipated Ban Zwang having such an impressive background. Upon arriving at the entrance of Gainan City, Yi Xian expressed confusion about the lack of anyone present to meet them. The elder, equally puzzled, responded that someone should have been there to welcome them. Sensing the unusual situation, Ban Zwang urged caution among the group. Shortly after, the gates began to open, revealing an elder who extended an invitation for Yi Xian to follow him. In response, the fellow elder reminded Yi Xian that this had been prearranged, encouraging him to proceed with confidence. Assured by this, Yi Xian and the group finally entered the city. Inside the Tangwood Drunken Immortal House, Yi Xian and his companions enjoyed a lavish meal at a table laden with an abundance of food. Expressing disbelief at the generous treatment they were receiving, Lin Han questioned Yi Xian's familiarity with the establishment. Yi Xian confirmed this, and Lin Han responded positively, highlighting the Drunken Immortal House's reputable status in the Middle Kingdom divine state, comparable to those in Tsang. Given this knowledge, Lin Han complimented him, concluding that he is not an ordinary person. Yi Xian modestly deflected the praise, describing himself as quite ordinary. Leaning closer to Yi Xian, Lin Han was about to ask if he has a sister, but Ban Zwang swiftly covered his mouth with a bun, playfully criticizing his tendency to speak too much. At that moment, a person introduced himself as the 8th floor master of the Tang Dynasty Drunken Immortal House and conveyed that he had urgent news to share. Yi Xian encouraged him to proceed, attentive to the matter at hand. Addressing Yi Xian, the 8th floor master revealed that both the Kangmu Academy and the Dark World were offering substantial rewards for Yi Xian's demise in Qingzhou. He went on to inform them that 3 individuals from the martial arts list were en route to confront them. Additionally, the Great Cloud Empire and the Black Sword Guards of the Tang Kingdom were making their way to Gainan City. Ban Zwang interjected, noting that they had already encountered these threats 3 hours earlier. In response, the 8th floor master clarified that Kangmu Academy and the Dark World had dispatched individuals from the Middle Kingdom. Hearing this, Lin Han deduced that if enforcers were coming from the Middle Kingdom, they might also need to summon reinforcements. Responding to this notion, Ban Zwang seated herself and gave the command to summon assistance. Lin Han questioned whether they should call all 13 of them. Ban Zwang's response was a concise order to call. Lin Han inquired about involving the Lu family, and again, Ban Zwang replied with a simple order to call. With a hint of hesitation, Lin Han inquired about individuals on the demon list. Ban Zwang's answer was direct and commanding, instructing him to call them too, emphasizing her lack of fear except for the master. Listening to the discourse, Yi Xian shared that this was a personal matter for him, and suggested that Ban Zwang need not involve herself. However, before he could finish his statement, Ban Zwang promptly silenced him, asserting that this extended beyond him. Reacting to this, Yi Xian could only smile at her, possibly appreciating her assertiveness in helping. Holding a voice transmission stone, Lin Han informed his elder sister that the connection had been established. Addressing the individual on the other end, Ban Zwang directed them to speak. The person on the connection greeted Ban Zwang using an affectionate term and humorously speculated if she had called at night because she wanted someone to sleep beside her. In response, Ban Zwang issued a sharp retort, warning the person not to push their luck. She then proceeded to request their assistance in the battle at Qingzhou. Curiously, the person inquired why she had ventured to such an inconspicuous place. With an expression of resignation, Ban Zwang asked if they were coming to help or not. Agreeing to help, the person stated that they wouldn't have agreed if it weren't for Ban Zwang's involvement. Intrigued, Yi Xian turned to Lin Han, questioning the identity of the individual and expressing surprise at their audacity to speak so casually to the leader. Blushing, Lin Han shared in a gossipy manner that she is a friend of his elder sister from the list of demons. Ban Zwang playfully shoved a chicken leg into Lin Han's mouth, teasing him for his talkativeness and urging him to quickly secure assistance. Turning to Yi Xian, Ban Zwang questioned if he intended to call for help or if he had someone to call upon. Yi Xian responded, stating that he had already reached out for help and sent a message earlier. Ban Zwang welcomed the news, emphasizing that they were not allowed to lose in that battle. At that moment, the elder from earlier entered the room, revealing a dire situation. The drunken immortal house was surrounded by nearly 10,000 Tang soldiers. He urged the 8th floor master to make a decision about their next course of action. Alarmed by this news, the 8th floor master inquired about the composition of the enemy forces, asking if they were solely soldiers. The elder's response was grave. He revealed that the enemy was not only comprised of soldiers but also included assassins from the dark world. Furthermore, he disclosed that they had received intelligence indicating that the Lord of the Tang Kingdom had journeyed to the imperial capital. In response, the 8th floor master instructed the elder to convey a message: unless the enemy retreated from Jiang, negotiations would cease. Turning to Yi Xian and his group, the elder advised them to rest for the night, recognizing their fatigue. He assured them that they would be safe within the confines of the drunken immortal house. Grateful for this assurance, the group expressed their thanks. The 8th floor master reciprocated with a bow, noting that it was a simple matter and there was no need for excessive politeness. He instructed them to rest and recuperate. Left alone, Ban Zwang consulted with Yi Xian about their next steps. Yi Xian acknowledged the gravity of the situation, emphasizing that they were not only facing tens of thousands of soldiers but also the threats from Kanmu Academy and the Dark World. He concluded that their only viable option was to fight with all their might. Agreeing with his assessment, Ban Zwang proposed that they proceed with that plan. In the early hours of the next morning, rows of enemy soldiers awaited outside the drunken immortal house, poised for an attack. Observing the scene from inside, the 8th floor master addressed the group, informing them that the drunken immortal house had dispatched 30 powerful individuals of the divine harmony realm from various parts of the world. These individuals were meant to serve as their escort for breaking out. He emphasized that Yi Xian and his group should refrain from engaging in the battle. Hearing this plan, Yi Xian and the group voiced their agreement. Providing further details, the 8th floor master explained that once they made their rush, everything would be up to them. He acknowledged his desire to contribute further but stated that the capabilities of the drunken immortal house were limited at the moment. In response, Yi Xian expressed gratitude while cautioning that excessive assistance from the drunken immortal house might jeopardize their properties in Tang. Before Yi Xian could finish his thought, the 8th floor master gestured for him to halt. He asserted that the property was inconsequential and that he was willing to let it go. He advised Yi Xian to prepare, indicating that it was time for them to depart. With agreement from Yi Xian, the leader addressed her group, checking if they were ready. She encouraged them to ask any lingering questions now or else proceed. In unison, the mercenary members confirmed their readiness. However, one of the mercenary members raised his hand, suggesting that his big sister go while he remained behind. Lin Han swiftly rejected this suggestion, calling it nonsense and insisting that they stick together. The mercenary held his ground, producing a storage ring and requesting that they deliver it to his brother, noting that it would sustain him for a long time. Despite his decision, Ban Zwang picked him up like a princess, berating his self-deprecation and asserting that she would take him along even if it meant facing danger. Moved by her determination, the mercenary shed tears and called her his big sister. With the preparations settled, Ban Zwang rallied her group for the impending battle. As the door opened, the enemy swiftly alerted their archers to prepare for action. Stepping out from the doorway, Yi Xian and his group emerged, accompanied by the individuals from the drunken immortal house. In response to their appearance, the enemy unleashed a barrage of arrows toward the group. Reacting with remarkable speed, the members of the drunken immortal house released their qi, seemingly to defend against the incoming arrows. Following this, the enemy infantry charged at Yi Xian and his group. In response, Yi Xian leaped into the air, charging toward the enemy and disrupting their formation. Capitalizing on this opportunity, Yi Xian urged his group to follow him as they made their escape, while the members of the drunken immortal house engaged the enemy forces. Witnessing Yi Xian and the group fleeing, one of the enemy soldiers ordered a pursuit, adamant that they should not be allowed to escape. However, with a menacing tone, the 8th floor master and the experts from the drunken immortal house confronted the pursuers, releasing their qi in an intimidating display that gave the enemy pause. Meanwhile, observing from behind the group, Lin Han informed them of the pursuers closing in from behind. Yi Xian reassured him, instructing Lin Han to run ahead without worry. The enemy cavalry leader initially ordered pursuit but was quickly interrupted by a soldier with urgent news. Angrily, the cavalry leader threatened the soldier, warning of dire consequences for delaying his crucial task. The soldier proceeded to relay the urgent news, revealing that the 9th princess of Jiang had launched a sudden attack, leaving Two Worlds City severely short of manpower. Marshal Pei had ordered the Black Sword Guards and the Death Battalion to rush back to Two Worlds City for support, with a threat of execution for those who disobeyed. In this critical moment, the cavalry leader cursed Jiang Jiao and ordered the entire army to head for Two Worlds City to support Marshal Pei. Resting by a nearby river, Ban Zwang commended the drunken immortal house for their reliability in holding back the 10,000 elite soldiers. Yi Xian agreed, stating that they consistently fulfilled their promises. However, Lin Han diverted Ban Zwang's attention, cradling Shan Yu in his arms and sadly informing her that Shan Yu had passed away. Tears welled up in Ban Zwang's eyes as she vehemently denied Lin Han's words, labeling them as nonsense. She asserted that, as the leader, she couldn't allow him to die, emphasizing that he must not die. Approaching the distraught leader, Yi Xian suggested that she stay there while he took care of everything else. Ban Zwang ate her bread in evident distress. Examining Shan Yu's condition, Yi Xian remarked that he initially believed Shan Yu had lost too much blood, but it appeared that Shan Yu had intentionally broken his own meridians. Hearing this, Lin Han referred to Shan Yu as a big dumbass, trembling with sadness. He surmised that Shan Yu had feared he was holding them back. Lin Han vehemently denied this, questioning how they could dislike their own brothers. Yi Xian reassured Lin Han, suggesting that they give Shan Yu a proper burial and affirming that they would still be brothers in the next life. Lin Han agreed, acknowledging Shan Yu's stupidity but expressing that he didn't dislike him. He concluded by expressing the hope that in the next life, they would remain brothers with him. Beneath a magnificent sword adorned with golden inscriptions, Ban Zwang and the group left their final words with Shan Yu, bidding him to rest in peace and entrusting the rest to them. She assured him that she would deliver the storage ring to his brother on his behalf. After bowing in unison before the sword, Lin Han turned to the leader, asking her where they were heading next. Yi Xian joined the conversation, pointing out that they were less than 800 miles from the Tang Empire and inquiring if they were interested in seeking fortune there. Curious about the specific location, Ban Zwang asked for more information, and Yi Xian mentioned the Tanga Kukungmu Academy. Meanwhile, at a distant location, Xuanqing's disciple approached him, revealing that the group that had been following Yi Xian hailed from the Middle Kingdom. Additionally, he disclosed that the lady named Lu Ban Zwang in the group was not only on the demon list but also a member of the Lu family. With an undertone of anger, Xuanqing interrogated the disciple about whether they had indeed provoked the Lu family from the Middle Kingdom and individuals on the demon list. Admitting his mistake, the disciple acknowledged his failure in ascertaining their origins and had unwittingly made an enemy for his master by taking action against them. He requested to be punished, but Xuanqing simply told him to rise. Addressing his master, the disciple inquired about their next course of action, noting that Yi Xian and the others were headed toward the capital. Xuanqing replied, stating that Yi Xian's enemy is not only the Kungmu Academy but also the Dark World. Smiling at the thought, Xuanqing remarked that they merely needed to wait, and someone from below would take care of him. At the Tangaka Kungmu Academy, one of the elder's tranquil lessons was abruptly disrupted by the arrival of Yi Xian, who sarcastically praised the students for their apparent dedication and studiousness. Incensed by this intrusion, the elder demanded to know who Yi Xian was and why he dared to trespass into the Kangmu Academy. Yi Xian responded with mockery, facetiously referring to himself as their grandfather before revealing his name. Upon recognizing Yi Xian, one student immediately labeled him as a devil, while another called for his execution. Stepping forward, the elder criticized Yi Xian for his arrogant words. Unbeknownst to the elder, Ban Zwang's whip suddenly struck from behind, ensnaring his neck in the process. Surprised by this action, Yi Xian questioned why she had initiated an attack prematurely. Ban Zwang replied, asserting that they were talking too much. Gripping her whip firmly, Ban Zwang further chastised the elder, who desperately called for help before being sent spinning through the air, severed from his head. The students erupted in panic at the gruesome sight. One confirmed that the elder was dead, while another urged for the dean to be summoned. With a tone of indignation, another elder, introduced as the dean of the Tengaku branch, confronted Yi Xian, questioning if he believed there was no one else at the Kangmu Academy. Yi Xian retorted, brandishing his sword as he challenged the dean, daring him to come and fight. He emphasized that he was standing right there. In response, the dean cast a piercing glare at Yi Xian, causing Lin Han and the rest of the group to sweat with uncertainty. However, despite his anger, the dean remained in place, privately denouncing Yi Xian as an arrogant little thief in his thoughts. He acknowledged that, were it not for the sword immortal behind Yi Xian, he would have cut him to pieces. Yi Xian addressed Ban Zwang, instructing her to lead their group to the treasury of the Tengaku Kangmu Academy, with the clear intent to seize everything within its walls. He made it abundantly clear that anyone daring to obstruct their mission would meet a swift and deadly fate. As Ban Zwang and the group advanced towards the treasury, the Academy's dean directed his attention to Yi Xian. In a cautionary tone, he urged Yi Xian not to take things too far, emphasizing that it was Zhang's Kangmu Academy that had wronged him, not the Tang Kangmu branch. Incensed by the dean's words, one of the students in the vicinity suggested taking drastic measures, even going as far as proposing to eliminate Yi Xian. Another student concurred, questioning why they should fear him at all. Doubting the students' understanding of the complex situation, the dean sternly demanded their silence. Yi Xian interjected with a proposition, offering to spare them if they renounced the Kangmu name, and willingly joined his Kanglan organization as handymen. He made it clear that if they declined this offer, they would not be forgiven for their actions. Upon hearing this proposal, the dean quivered with anger, accusing Yi Xian of insulting him excessively. Noticing the signals from his comrades outside the window, Yi Xian addressed the entire Kangmu Academy community. He reiterated his offer, stating that it remained open, and if they ever changed their minds, they could find him at Kanglan. Observing their group, the dean seethed with rage, holding Li Xiankong responsible for the devastation that had befallen his Tengaku Kangmu Academy. In a sudden fit of fury, the elder transformed into a Super Saiyan 3, ready to duke it out with Majin Buu. After settling in an abandoned house, one of the mercenaries informed the group about the impressive loot they had acquired. There were a total of 270 million gold coins and about 8 million extremely high-quality spirit stones. Additionally, there were 3 scrolls of Earth-rank lower-grade martial skills, 1 scroll of Earth-rank middle-grade, and 1 scroll of Earth-rank upper-grade. Observing these treasures, Yi Xian couldn't help but acknowledge that the Tang Kangmu Academy truly lived up to its reputation as a wealthy institution. Adding to the information, the leader mentioned that there were also a few miscellaneous items, estimating their value at around 20 million. Lin Han celebrated this newfound wealth, remarking that cultivation was an expensive endeavor. He concluded that with this wealth, he could advance to the Divine Harmony realm. Addressing Yi Xian, Lin Han inquired if he knew of any other places in Tang with valuable treasures. Yi Xian questioned this, asking if Lin Han had become addicted to robbery. Approaching Yi Xian, Lin Han countered by asking if there was anyone who disliked money. In response, Yi Xian disclosed that he knew of a place that was undoubtedly the richest spot in the entire kingdom. Intrigued, Lin Han asked about its location, and Yi Xian revealed that it was the Tang Palace. Yi Xian then inquired if they were interested in robbing it. Ban Zwang shook her head, explaining that they couldn't raid the palace at the moment. She pointed out that their whereabouts had been exposed, and all parts of the imperial capital were heavily guarded, with the imperial palace being the most fortified. Yi Xian agreed with her assessment, expressing his concern. Lin Han proposed an alternative plan, suggesting that instead of robbing the palace, they should target the princesses and generals around the palace. This idea appealed to Lin Han, who stated that he was eager to carry it out. Observing Lin Han's enthusiasm, Yi Xian commented that he was indeed a sharp thinker. With their plan settled, Ban Zwang readied her whip, signaling that it was time to proceed on their way. Later on, Yi Xian and the group continued their rampage as they entered a specific household. As they entered, Yi Xian urged them to seize the treasures. Upon entering, they were greeted by an abundance of riches. Lin Han couldn't contain his excitement, marveling at the room filled with gold and declaring that they were now rich. Ban Zwang smiled and instructed them to take everything. Moving on to the residence of King Zhao of Tang, the guards quickly gathered, with one of them instructing the others not to let the group in. However, with a single chi slash directed their way, multiple guards were sent flying. Observing this, Ban Zwang remarked that anyone who dared to stand in her way would end up dead. They then proceeded to another mansion, which belonged to a general of the Tang dynasty. The mercenaries waited outside while Yi Xian, Ban Zwang, and Lin Han entered a room, impressed by the high-quality weapons they found there. Lin Han celebrated their discovery, considering it a great fortune. On the following day at the imperial palace of the Tang dynasty, Tang Nan, the lord of Tang, criticized Yi Xian for his unforgivable crime of robbing his military armory and the wealth of his important nobles. Addressing a grand elder, Tang Nan sought his opinion. The grand elder replied, acknowledging that Yi Xian and the 12 individuals under the Dharma realm were nearly invincible. He recommended patience until reinforcements from the Middle Kingdom arrived. In response, Tang Nan ordered the city gates to be closed and instructed the feathered arrow guards and imperial troops to stand by. When the people from the Kangmu Academy and the Middle Kingdom arrived, they were to immediately kill Yi Xian. The Grand Elder acknowledged the order. Returning to the group, Ban Zwang playfully addressed Yi Xian, remarking that Lin Han had become a real bandit after following him for a few days. Yi Xian humorously inquired if that was meant as a compliment. In response, Ban Zwang told him that he was really laying it on thick. At that moment, Yi Xian noticed that his sound transmission device was vibrating. After being recognized by Yi Xian, the 8th floor master relayed some information. He mentioned that a gold mine had been discovered at Wangui Mountain, located 100 miles away from the imperial capital of the Tang dynasty. He offered this information to Yi Xian, suggesting that he might be interested in checking it out. Yi Xian thanked the 8th floor master for the information. Turning to Ban Zwang, Yi Xian asked if they were interested in another lucrative venture. Ban Zwang replied, confirming whether Yi Xian's main goal was really to rob the gold mine near Tang. Yi Xian clarified that it was part of the reason and then questioned if they were going or not. Addressing the group, Ban Zwang informed them that Yi Xian was planning to rob a gold mine and asked if they wanted to join him. Lin Han and the others enthusiastically agreed, and Yi Xian suggested they move quickly. Standing before the heavily guarded gold mine, Yi Xian and his group boldly presented themselves in front of the enemy, warning that if they didn't want to die, they should step aside. The leader of the guards responded with disdain, calling Yi Xian's words nonsense, and claiming that it was Yi Xian who deserved to die. Yi Xian accepted his challenge, confidently stating that he would send the leader to hell. The enemy leader retorted, labeling Yi Xian as arrogant and emphasizing that the Tang people would never submit to the Jiang people. Yi Xian fired back, asserting that it was the enemy leader who was the arrogant one. Yi Xian's sword struck the enemy leader, drawing blood, as he reminded them that when the Tang attacked the Jiang and massacred their people, he never intended to ask them to submit. There was only death. One of the guards ordered Yi Xian's execution, but their grand elder suddenly intervened, instructing them to stop. He informed them that the lord of the kingdom had ordered that those who fought against Yi Xian would be punished. One of the guards questioned the grand elder, arguing that Yi Xian was bullying their forces. The grand elder reiterated his order for them to stand down, emphasizing the avoidance of unnecessary sacrifices. He assured them that the 12 people would be dealt with by someone else. Yi Xian commended the grand elder's wisdom, suggesting that he ask all his people to clear the way. The grand elder complied, ordering the guards to step back. Entering the mine, Lin Han couldn't contain his excitement as he marveled at the abundant gold surrounding them. He celebrated their newfound wealth, remarking that they were now truly rich. Ban Zwang ordered them to take all the gold and emphasized leaving no piece behind. Lin Han and the others happily complied, efficiently transferring the gold into their storage rings. In a moment of unexpected abundance, Lin Han expressed his aspirations. He spoke of a desire to not only achieve the divine harmony realm but also to have enough wealth to marry a beautiful woman. Ban Zwang playfully countered, teasing Lin Han and questioning who would be willing to marry him. Lin Han responded confidently, emphasizing their newfound wealth, suggesting that they wouldn't have any trouble attracting potential partners. However, before he could finish his sentence, Lin Han displayed his quick reflexes by saving his big sister from a flaming projectile. This action momentarily distracted Yi Xian, but Ban Zwang promptly drew their attention to a barrage of incoming arrows. Realizing the danger they were in, Lin Han deduced that the enemy had let them in with a sinister motive, to burn them alive inside the mine. Thinking fast, Yi Xian gave the order to make a run for the exit. Meanwhile, outside the mine, Xuanqing's disciple praises the Grand Elder's cunning tactics, acknowledging that it was an eye-opening experience. The Grand Elder weighed in, emphasizing the importance of combining both strength and intellect in battles. He criticized Yi Xian for relying solely on brute force without a strategic approach. The disciple concurred with Xuanqing's assessment, expressing admiration for the wise and resourceful Grand Elder, Master Gua. Master Gua, however, reminded them that this was not the time for compliments. He pointed out that even though the iron door was made of the highest quality Xian iron, it was not indestructible. In case Yi Xian's group attempted to break out, they would still need the support of the Kangmu Academy and the Dark World. Responding to this, Xuanqing's disciple confidently remarked that even if they managed to escape, it would be difficult for them to escape from his grasp. Suddenly, flames erupted from inside the mine, followed by an outraged Ban Zwang, who demanded to know who had started the fire. The arrogant disciple responded mockingly, regretting that they had failed to burn their enemies alive. Infuriated by this taunt, Ban Zwang struck out, clearly intent on exacting revenge. However, Xuanqing intervened, appearing unexpectedly and saving the arrogant disciple from further harm. With a stern tone, Xuanqing pointed out that their opponent was not to be underestimated and demanded that the disciple stand down. Turning to Yi Xian, Xuanqing introduced himself and recounted the incident where his master had killed several elders of the Kangmu Academy, vowing to seek retribution. Unfazed, Yi Xian responded with confidence, challenging Xuanqing to prove his capability if he wished to avenge the deaths of his academy's elders.